Hello, bonjour, white, Jesukusquite, Kapiniskis, Kim Limt, Kim Queech. I'm really grateful that you're here. And thank you so much for joining us for this fantastic workshop. We are recording, it's a temporary recording just so we can enable anyone who can't join us today in this moment to play this leading up to and during the official World Rivers Day on September 24th. And it is in fact International Tree Day today as well. So this is a celebration of all things natural and all our relatives. My name's Jade Beryl. I'm the Director of Learning at the Outdoor Learning Store. We're a charitable non-profit dedicated to outdoor learning. And joining me as my co-host and behind-the-scenes superstar is Steph. I'll give you, I guess you can introduce yourself when you get to the take me outside bit, but we'll head on. Just to let you know, this is an image actually from the banks of Sinhit, which in the Enselshean language means swift river, and I live along the banks of the Swift River in the traditional and unceded territories of the Snakes people. That's the people of the place of the bull trout, and unfortunately, as we will hear in this story, and as is the story of many rivers in our modern world, you know, the bull trout here are at risk. We've dammed our rivers, we've shifted their natural cycles, and there is a lot of work to be done to care for rivers. And we have some people in the room here joining us today to share and present who have done real work to regenerate and care for the environment. And so we're really looking forward to hearing that amazing story and the work that has been done. In order to open things in a really good way, I would like to start with an offering. So we have Robert Elofson, who is Tribal Elder with the Elwha Klallam Tribe, and I have been instructed by one of my elders and mentors, Shelley Boyd, in gift giving, and this is something that is incredibly important whenever we are in a space to receive knowledge and learning. And so I have some ceremonially grown tobacco in a small red pouch, and I hold it in my left hand, which is closest to my heart. And I offer this to you, Robert, and I will post it. I wish I could be here in person with you, but I offer this to you with the intention of the deepest gratitude for your knowledge, for the energy that you've put into protecting the water and therefore all living beings and all of our relatives on this Mother Earth. And it's with my greatest gratitude for you to join us today and to share.
Thank you. I'm honored by your offering.
Would you like to start things off, Robert, or I can flow through and we can move into the next stages?
I think Robert had a prayer for us.
Yeah, I would. Yes, I will offer a prayer. Okay, I would like to ask the Great Spirit to help and protect the participants in this gathering for the World Rivers Day workshop. I pray that you will support the time and efforts to protect the world's rivers that are being made. I also wish to thank my tribal ancestors for the goals and accomplishments our tribe has achieved with the help of their teachings. Thank you.
Thank you. Lim Limt, Suki Sukini. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. Okay, as we flow through, I'm just going to share my screen with you and just welcome you officially to the workshop. We'll do a little bit of introduction before we get going. So we are in a workshop. It's really fantastic. We've got quite a few people here today with us live, over 50. So thank you so much for joining us at the end of probably what's a busy day or family time. And we're here to celebrate World Rivers Day and talk about I Am the Elwha, this beautiful book written and created by the people joining us today. it is September, and in Canada, we're leading up to September 30th, which is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And a part of the work that came from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's work and into understanding the truth of the impacts of colonialism on Indigenous people in Canada, and this extends down to the US as well, is to really work hard to reconcile relationships and to honour Indigenous ways of knowing and being. This is a photo I took yesterday along the banks of Sinhinquitach, Swift River. It's my little dog. You can actually see the sort of haze from wildfire smoke that we've had. And so if you have this knowledge, we'd invite you now in the chat to share the traditional territory that you're joining us from. Perhaps you'd like to share one thing. One of my Indigenous mentors, Tim Patterson, is Secwepemc man, said to me, it's not just enough to acknowledge I'm on the traditional territory of the Snipes. It's also special to the Secwepemc, the Silks, and the Ktunaxa First Nations, but what your personal relationship is to it. And so this place, this river, the world around me, is a place that is a chosen home. I came here uninvited, but it's one that I cherish. And so I pick up trash whenever I see it, whenever I walk my dog. I care that if I found dead fish, which I did find a lot of because we've had a lot of drought here and problems with the low levels of the river, that I share that knowledge with appropriate people. And so there is a lot we can do. So if you would like to share in the chat your traditional acknowledgement and one way that you're connected to rivers, or that you can what you can do with that knowledge, that would be wonderful. As that happens, I just want to share a few resources that we have that are linked to honouring traditional Indigenous ways of knowing and being. The person that created Orange Shirt Day, Phyllis Webster, created a resource set of books and lesson plans that are available. We're hosting 4 Seasons of Indigenous Learning, which is an online course for truth and reconciliation, and is accompanied by these 10 fantastic Indigenous diverse leaders, educators, and knowledge keepers sharing in live gatherings. We also have a lot of different resources from Indigenous creators on science curriculum from North America, learning how animals can help us care for Mother Earth. We have a completely Indigenous-led professional development day happening on Friday, October 20th. And Steph wanted to share very briefly about Take Me Outside Day before we dive in.
Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, I'm Steph. I'm the program manager at Take Me Outside, and love being Jade's co-host for these workshops. So I'm working behind the scenes. Message me if you have any technical difficulties, anything like that. And if you are not familiar with Take Me Outside, we are all about creating greater connections with the outdoor world and learning beyond the traditional sort of 4 walls of a classroom in the school system. So every year we hold a big celebration that's all about getting outside in whatever way that looks and means to you. And you can see there we have our different themes every day of that week, October 16th, 20th. And there's going to be a big celebration of nature art happening on Take Me Outside Day this year, which is going to be lovely. And it's all free to sign up. All the speakers and everything throughout the week are free. So I'll put the link in the chat there and hope to see you all there.
Thank you, Steph. And that's free resources. Of course, the big one we're going to talk today about is I Am the Elwha, which is written by Lori Peelen, who's here, illustrated by Laura Timmermans, and supported and created by the work of Robert Elofson. I'll do a quick introduction and then I will dive right into all of the fun. So joining us, Robert Elofson is a member of the Elwha Klallam Tribe, located in Port Angeles, Washington. Born in 1952, he's lived most of your life there, and today lives with extended family on their property alongside the Elwha River. Robert trained as a fisheries biologist and holds degrees in both physics and biology. During his career, he dedicated 15 years of his life to the Elwha River Restoration Project as its director. And Robert currently is the harvest manager in the Natural Resources Department for the Elwha Klallam Tribe. He's enjoyed commercial fishing over the years and today continues to fish. So welcome, Robert. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for the very thorough introduction.
we like to, you know, get all the information out there as we proceed. And you've done a lot with your life. We're very grateful for you to share even some snippets of your wisdom with us today. Next up is Lori Peelen. Lori lives on the central coast of California with husband, 3 towering sons, and an assortment of cats, dogs, wandering hens, and 1 ancient horse. Lori has spent years homeschooling her own kids and teaching other people's kids as a speech therapist or special ed teacher. Lori blogs at streamriffs.com. We'll put the link in the chat, and is the author of Big Fish Dreams, I Am the Elwha, and Root Beer in Heaven. Thank you so much for joining us, Lori.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. And since we started this conversation, which was a year ago, my husband and I have actually moved to Northern California. So everything else is the same, but I now live in Northern California on a different river, on the Russian River. So thank you.
Amazing. We're all connected through our waterways. So wonderful. And last but absolutely not least, Laura Timmermans. Laura's the illustrator of several West Coast children's books, including Hideaway Cove, A Night at Hideaway Cove, and of course, I Am the Elwha, which was a Riverbee Award winner. Growing up in New Clulet, which is on the west coast of Vancouver Island, this sparked Laura's enthusiasm for the natural world. Her career as a freelance illustrator and graphic designer allows her to spend many hours in nature. Laura lives with her family on Vancouver Island. Part of family is currently nestled, sleeping, and walks in the forest nearly every day. It will pop a link to Laura's work in the chat as well, and we can connect you and the work you're doing with everyone here. So welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are going to have a full reading of the book, which is so exciting. But in order to give us a bit of context, maybe some people haven't experienced the book or know even what the Elwha River is or where it is. I wonder if we might start with, how did the book come to be? And Lori, how did you connect to the river, and Robert, and then Laura to illustrate? You know, how did this river start flowing?
So for me, it started because I was living in Central California along the Salinas River, which was once a river that was full of salmon also and ran year round. But in 100 years, 80 years ago, it was dammed to create water for San Luis Obispo County. And the river where I lived ran almost not at all. I mean, it was mostly a dry riverbed. It was a racetrack for kids on their all-terrain vehicles. It was so depressing. When the rains came back, it would flood briefly. But there were many people that remembered, you know, what the river was like. They remembered when it flowed year round and when the fish would come just surging forward and come up the streams. I lived on a little branch of the Salinas that did flow. I loved my stream. I've always been a creek walker, a river person. I grew up on the Russian River in Northern California, and just like most human beings, just drawn to water. So I found it really depressing when I had my kids. We loved our little stream, but it would just go down into this river that was so just desiccated. So there was a group of citizens that was working, trying to get obstacles removed, trying to get more water released, trying to do anything we could to get the water restored. About this time, I started just seeing snippets in the news about the Elwha River. And of course, I was just riveted. It was like, oh my God, look what they have done. And I kept talking about it. And my husband said to me one day, he said, well, why don't we just go see it? And it hadn't occurred to me that I could just get on an airplane and go see it. So we did. And it was absolutely magical, because it was about a year and a half probably after the dams had come out. I hadn't met Robert, didn't really know any of the players in the story, but we just landed, got a car, drove up the Olympic Peninsula, and got out and were walking along the shores of the Elwha that is now flowing and these just magnificent trees were so, you know, it was just like this kind of a rainforest for me. And looking down at the river, we saw salmon just swimming right in front of our eyes back up the river. And they were, of course, battered and tattered. They, you know, they'd come a long way. They were old, but they were returning to the home that they had been denied access to for over 100 years. And at that moment, I started to cry. I felt like this is like so amazing. How did, you know, how magical that this happened. So we spent a couple of days. We just hiked all over. I didn't even know where to begin, but the Klallam tribe has a beautiful little kiosk where they have art painted on tiles that the children in their community have made. These beautiful little tiles of the kids welcoming the river back home, what they saw, what they hoped to see. So it was just fabulous. I went home. I wanted to write the story for kids because I just love writing for kids. And I just thought they're the gatekeepers for the world, for the rest of us. They're the ones that are going to be in charge. So I want them to care, I guess, to care. And so I wrote the story. I wanted to write it from the viewpoint of the river and the animals and the Klallam tribe, and also, all the players in the story, just a little perspective from all of it. And when I did, I didn't really quite know what to do with it. I started sending it out. I sent it to many, many American publishers, and they all turned me down. Nobody was interested in the story, even though this was an American river, an American success story. I couldn't get any interest. So I came across this publisher in Canada, Strong Nations, and I just sent them an email and said, would you even be remotely interested? And they said, yes. Actually, I'm forgetting part of the story. In between when I sent it to Canada, I decided I needed to know more about the Klallam story. And I got in touch with the Tribal Councilwoman, Frances. Help me, Robert, with her last name, Frances. I'm blanking on her name, right? But anyway, and she did not have a lot of time for me, but she directed me to Robert. She said, you need to meet Robert Elofson. So we got back on an airplane. We came back, and Robert was so kind to meet with us. And he took us all over in his pickup truck. We got out, we hiked up and down the river. We went down to the shore where the sand had just been blasted out from the river into the ocean. And there's this new beach sandy beach that wasn't there before. And Robert is the man who masterminded this. He basically knows everything about this river. It was his baby. He was there for the, instructing the destruction of the dam, the river restoration. He monitors, everything about the fish that are returning. And so it was just an unbelievable dream to get to meet Robert and to have him introduce us to a few people and to kind of just take me a little bit under his wing and gave a blessing to this story. He read it many times himself. And once we had Robert's blessing, Strong Nations said, we want this story. And so that was really kind of how it came to be. And then Strong Nations connected us with Laura, with her just amazing art. And she really just brought the story to life. So I'm grateful. Picture books are just like the ultimate in collaboration. I feel like maybe I got, tapped on the shoulder to write this story, but it kind of wasn't my story. I'm just grateful that Robert allowed me to help tell his story, and that Laura brought it to life, and that Strong Nations took it, and that you at the outdoor store are willing to give us this little showcase, because it's a magical story. It's a heartbreaking story, but it has a really great ending. So thank you for your interest.
That's so wonderful. And Strong Nations are an Indigenous owned and operated publishing house based on Vancouver Island. If you're not aware, I put a link in the chat. So it's really phenomenal. that it found its home with the right people to share it out. Before we read the story, Robert, could you share a little bit, just for context? You know, we said it's a sad story, but there's a happy ending. Can you just share a little bit about the work you've done with the river?
Oh, I do. And you mentioned that I live on, family property, but it is on the Elwha River. My house is like 300 feet above the Elwha River on a bluff. So I've seen it my whole life. And as a matter of fact, for exercise, I used to run down to the Elwha Dam and back. It's a big uphill, downhill run. So I would do it for exercise. And at the time, I never dreamed, I would dream that would be good to get rid of them, but I didn't think it was going to be a possibility because I'd been there my whole life. But okay, you want some information on the actual Elwha restoration?
Yes, please.
Okay, yes. I worked, first of all, from 91 to 93, during which we got the Elwha River Restoration Act passed with Congress. And actually, I came back and worked for the tribe. And I used to come back and visit the tribe during the summertime. And two elders that testified for that legislation in the Senate kept saying how I would come back and help the tribe. And I was thinking, we didn't even have recognized fishing rights when I started, and we did when I finished. But it was almost like they knew what was going to happen with the Elwha, because, they said I'd come back and help. And it was perfect for my education to come back. And they testified in front of the Senate, and I worked really hard to get the legislation passed, and we hired many experts in river restoration and restoring a river, which had never been done in this range. And I took tons of information to the Senate meeting, and the elders testified. The staff said, yours means nothing compared to what these two ladies just did for you. They got it passed. So anyway, sorry, I get upset. They're both gone now. But that's a tribal way. You don't work just for yourself. Anyway, I was told by our lawyers in DC that it would be a long process. And I just, I shook my head, agreed with them, and came home and said, that's not our job. Our job is to do it this year. And we did it in 1 year through Congress. But anyway, then we got the dams were acquired in 20, and I came back to work and asked to come back to work in 2001. And we had to do the environmental impact statement. It was done in 2005. Started the mitigation projects, which always have to be done for federal projects, in 2007, and finished them by 2011. And then dam removal started in 2011 immediately, and we completed it by 2014. And then the sediment transport that restored our beach, restored all the sand and gravel to the river, restored the woody debris to the river. We have all the channels. It was just one deep channel with large rocks in it before the restoration, and now it's a completely natural river with all of the woody debris, all of the riparian vegetation along the river, all the sand and gravel. And it took till the sediment was gone before the fish that spawned in the river could survive. That took up until about 2017, but we're doing very well with the Chinook, the Coho, and the pink salmon. And the Sockeye salmon aren't doing as well, and the Chum salmon aren't as strong, but we have Chum salmon coming back. The Sockeye are a lake fish, and those were completely wiped out. And we have some natural riverine sockeye spawning, but not that. We also have both summer and winter steelhead, and we weren't even sure we had a good summer steelhead. And they came back, they spawned above the dams, they spawned upriver. So they were one of the first ones that came back. And you might be happy about this, bull trout are the most successful restoration. They've just done tremendously. They're outnumbering everything upstream. The steelhead are the second best, and the Chinook are third. But yeah,
that's amazing. The bull trout can be a bit bullyish, can't they? They're out there strutting their stuff.
Yeah,
oh, that makes me so happy. And we were talking before this because I live along the banks of the Columbia River. We are currently dammed. The nearest dam is 3 kilometers upstream of me. And we are suffering all of the effects of, dissemination, destruction of the biodiversity of fish stocks. We now only have these landlocked species, and they're very viable to death and stress. We've logged a lot of the forest alongside the banks, so we have less shade for spawning what fish that do remain. And so the work that you have done and actually successfully implemented is the inspiration for so many of us who live along dammed rivers, for the potential of what can happen and how nature can rebound when given the space to do so. I think we should dive into the story, and then everyone, if you have questions or things you'd like to ask, please type them in the chat and we'll collect them up and we'll do a Q&A at the end. Unless there's something else you'd like to add, Robert, before we move forward.
No, I think that's all I'd like to speak about.
Thank you so much. Okay, in which case, what I'm going to do is Laura is going to display the book for us. I'm going to highlight that, and then Lori's going to read for us. So hopefully you should have the images and Lori speaking, and I will go on mute and I'll pass it over to you to share this beautiful story with us. Thank you.
Good. So Laura, if you can just focus on, I have my copy in front of me. I can read, but you can just show your picture so they can see just your illustration. Can you see that?
Great. I just can't see my screen anymore. Somehow it's disappearing.
Okay.
Is that okay?
We can see it now. Yeah, good. Okay. I am the Elwha. This is the voice of the river. I am the Elwha, wild and free. My valleys are wide, my canyons deep. My water shines turquoise and teal. That's from the glacial silt from upstream. In winter, I charge over boulders, roaring like a mother bear. In summer, I slosh and slide around stones, my song like 100 voices laughing. The Klallam people and animals and birds live along my shores. I feed them all with my salmon. The salmon hatch in my streams. When the babies grow bigger, I carry them gently down to the sea. When they're finally grown, they swim back upstream, thousands of miles to come back to their home. They swish bowls for their nests in my clean gravel bed. They cover their eggs with pebbles and stones. When they finish this task, their lives are all done. Once again, I carry them to the edge of my shores, where my fish become food for water bugs, which then become food for my newly hatched young. And the cycle starts over again. Bears and bald eagles, coyotes and cougars, raccoons and otters feast on my shores. Leftover fish feed my cedars and firs, which shelter the nests of my 10,000 birds. In this way, I have cared for my family for as long as I can remember. Okay. Now we hear from the dam builder. I am Thomas Aldwell, ambitious and bold. It is 1910. I have plans for this town to prosper and grow. We need houses and factories. I will cut these trees down. We need power and lights. I will dam up the Elwha, harness its power. I'll make jobs for our people. I will light up this town. that point, Port Angeles did not have any electricity. We are the Klallam, proud and strong. We've lived on the Elwha since the world was young. Each year when the fish return, we celebrate first salmon. After we all take a taste, we bless the bones and send them downstream. We give thanks to our river for the gift of this food. But today we do not celebrate. Men build dams on our river to make power and light, but our power is inside us. The sun and the moon bring us light. And what of our salmon? With these dams, they will die. We are the Klallam. We will fight for what's right. We are the trees, ancient and tall, cedar and spruce, hemlock and fir. We sway in the wind. We drink in the rain. We hold eagles and songbirds and nests in our crowns. We've grown in this valley since glaciers were young. But today we become lumber for factories and homes. The river rises and rises. Our birds have all flown. We're so deep underwater, even the sunlight cannot find us here. And you can see, if you walk up to the lake bed, all the drowned stumps of the trees that once lived there. Okay, we are the creatures, feathered and furred, eagles and otters, coyotes and bears, forced to move on, seeking food for our young, leaving our rivers, leaving our home. I am Lake Aldwell, muddy and warm. For 100 years, I've worked for this town, cranking out power to keep their lights on. Beneath my calm surface, I'm still the Elwha, grieving the children I no longer feed. My wild ones have left. My Klallam moved on. My heart is still wild, but I am not free. We are the salmon, silver and red, pink Chinook, Sockeye, Coho, Steelhead, and Chum. We've traveled so far to be stopped at this dam. We can't swim around it. We cannot leap over it. Swimming in circles, we batter against it. Until our last breath, we try to come home. We are the children, wondering and small, hearing tales of a river and cedars so tall that they reach to the sun, stories of eagles and bears, and so many fish that our elders could walk on their backs as they swished their way back up the river to spawn. Where are those pools of turquoise and teal? We are your children, dreaming new dreams. We are a new generation, thinking and wise. We are descendants of settlers and the Klallam tribe. These dams gutted our river and the lives it once fed. They're old and unsafe. We no longer use them. Can we just tear them down? Too expensive, too hard. It can never be done. Yet, the elders kept fighting for this river they love. Our scientists and dreamers say, listen, let's learn. Our children are watching. Can we right this old wrong? I am the worker, steady and strong. For 30 years, I have come to work at this dam, to make sure she is safe, to bring lights to my town. I know her heartbeat as it rises and falls. I know every light and switch on this wall. But today, they tell me she must be destroyed. Outside, people wait with signs and balloons. For the very last time, I hang up my tools. I will not look back. I won't watch her come down. And Laura, if you turn that a little bit, you can see her picture of her dam worker. I'll hold it up right there. And there was a man who had been working there all those years who was actually very sad about this. I am the Elwha, waiting and still, under Lake Aldwell, behind this great wall. What do they want, this group by the dam? They start in with hammers and knock out a chunk. A cheer rises up. I spill over the top, just a trickle at first. Then dynamite, cranes, and wrecking balls, a gush, then a torrent. My roar is the sound of the earth torn in half. I smash through this dam, wiping out everything that stands in my path. We are the citizens, hopeful, resolved, watching the surge, a century of silt piled in back of this wall, shoved down the valley by a river gone wild. Scientists, dreamers, together we stand, working together to restore what we had. We are new sprouts, tiny and green, cedar and hemlock, alder and fir, planted by hands of every color and size, hands young and old, from the folks of this town, working together. They welcome us home. In this wasteland of sand, it's hard to take hold, but we reach for the sun and drink in the rain. We send our roots down as we dream of eagles and nests in our crowns. We are the salmon, tattered and torn, surging upriver back where we belong. Pink Chinook, Coho, Sockeye, Steelhead, and Chum thrashing upstream, coming home, coming home. We are the children doing our part. We welcome this river with our beautiful art. We imagine a river we never have known, with salmon and eagles, otters and bears, and all the wild creatures at last coming home. We are the Klallam, joyful and proud. For 100 years, our ceremony lost. Now we all celebrate, drawing strength from our past. First salmon ceremony here at long last. We never gave up. We never backed down. We are the wild things, cautious, alert, sniffing the wind, hearing the news of a river we once used to roam, moving by land and on currents of air. We are the wild things, turning towards home. I am the Elwha, newly set free, shining in ribbons of turquoise and teal. I leap over boulders, roaring in winter, singing in summer. My voice shouts with laughter as I slosh around stones. My people return, and my creatures and trees, I rush out to greet them. Welcome, my children. Welcome home. Welcome home. And that is the end of the Elwha book story, but it is not the end of the Elwha River story. For that, I hope you visit it yourself. In the back of the book, we have a lot of salmon information provided by Robert, which is so fun because you can actually learn so much about all the different kinds of salmon, which I never knew how to tell them all apart. Now I know a little better. I'm still no expert. And on the very back page, we have a photograph of what it looks like today. Whoopsie, can't see it. Anyway, this is how it looks today. It's even bluer and greener and prettier than my photograph, but with a little update on the status of the Elwha that Robert has just given us. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the story. If you are a teacher or a homeschooling parent, there are lesson plans that come with this that are at the Strong Nations website. It's really fun for unit studies because you can cover a lot of territory. The lesson plans go for K through 8. And it's just a really fun way to get in history and science, life science and social studies and even art. There's a lot of fun projects. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. And I really hope that all of you have a river or stream that you love and that someday you make a trip to see the Elwha River because it is so inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What a beautiful story, and full of so much information. And to know that all of that happened and that people worked so hard to facilitate change is, I think, very powerful. And someone shared that the story brought tears to their eyes. Thank you for sharing and giving this river the attention it deserves. So that's really powerful. I wonder, Laura, because you were just there, you know, turning pages. Thank you for that really important task.
No problem.
But maybe you could just share briefly, as an illustrator, as someone who, you know, as a nature lover, but who came to this project to, you know, to just give it life in this sort of aesthetic sense. How is it important for you that stories be told, or how do you feel like when we illustrate or we tell stories that it can impact on people's understanding?
Yeah, good question. I think a lot about the audience who's going to be reading this story, and it's the kids. And so I really try to put myself back when I was a kid and being captivated by a story and how that just stays with you for a lifetime. So using my illustrations to just really try to inspire kids to care about our planet. So I grew up in a very small town and I was quite jaded to the world. And I grew up with healthy rivers, healthy oceans. I grew up in a small town on Vancouver Island. And it wasn't until I went away for school and started to travel the world that I kind of realized, man, the planet's just not doing that well. So I really thought hard to, find a way to communicate and educate and inspire kids. So that's kind of where I think about when I'm illustrating, just to their lens. They're so impersonable. I have 2 young kids. One is currently sleeping on my chest and the other one's running around upstairs, but just how to really lock into their imagination and just to inspire them. So yeah, and what a better way to do it than have some fun with some illustrations. And yeah, that's kind of where my lens comes from. I think I still remember when my teachers assigned me the first time to when I had to make my own book as a kid. I remember I made a book about whales. So it's just an impactful, it sticks with you kind of way. So yeah, happy to be doing this work.
That's so nice. Like most artists, I see that, you know, whenever we talk to people in these spaces, they're always so modest about their passion, but you can see the passion, you can feel it in the words, you can feel the effort, the love, the connection that Robert and your the people that you've worked with in order to facilitate this change have put into every step of their process, and you can feel your joy and connection through the pictures. They are very beautiful, and I think resources like this can be a very powerful tool for connecting people to real environmental work and change. And with that, Robert, I wonder, you know, if we've got people joining us today, before we go into some sort of general Q&A, as someone who has, you know, worked your whole life to protect and care for rivers, as we celebrate World Rivers Day, are there some things that you think are important people can do to care for rivers where they live? Or maybe, you know, what are some lessons that have come out of the work that you've done with the Elwha that maybe other people might benefit from hearing?
Yeah, actually, I was thinking of 3 that I shared with, I believe I've shared with Lori before. first of all, you know, those tiles that the kids made, that same year, we got a Valentine's Day card from one of the kids thanking us for the restoration. And then about, I don't know, 3 years after the dams were taken out, I used to have a couple dreams that I can remember when I was a kid. One was hunting, because my uncle used to hunt, who brought me up for quite a bit of my life. And I used to dream about elk coming out of the trees, and we never had elk around. And I pulled out of my road and went up our road one day, and a bull elk and 3 cows stepped out in front of me, exactly the place where I used to dream.
Oh, that's so cool.
Out of the river. And then, you know, one of the most important things, and things I've been trying to point out is, you know, we think in 7 generations, the coastal tribes, Coast Salish tribes, I believe that's true in Canada also. But one of our tribal members was telling me, you know, thanking me, you know, for doing it. And we had his 1-year-old grandson with him. I said that, you know, we're doing it for them. And he's a teenager now, so, you know, he still tells everybody the story, and, you know, how much he supports what we've done and what I do. So, I mean, you know, you can't get more than that. You know, you learn you can do it, and, you know, you have the desire and the care. You can work at it and get these things done. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. I have a question that came in from the chat, and I guess as author and contributors, Bonnie was asking, was there ever discussion to use Klallam names for the animals, like to honour or amplify the Klallam language within the book, or how does that sort of process work with that knowledge sharing?
That's a really good question. And the answer is, it never occurred to me. I was really not very knowledgeable about the indigenous tribes. I just sort of started at the knowledge base that I had and moved forward. No one has ever suggested that, but I think that's a wonderful idea. Wish I would have thought of it.
Yeah, I have definitely something to say about that, because we have a tribal member who's younger than me, but I consider one of my role models, because she's an instructor, and she has got the state of Washington to include native languages as fulfilling the foreign language requirements in schools for the state of Washington. And so it's being taught now. There were very few of us that spoke it. We were down to just 1 or 2 tribal members, and they put together a dictionary, and they teach it now at all 3 levels, you know, grade school, middle school, and senior high in the area. So it's coming back. I can say I took the class twice, and boy, I've taken Spanish. There's some association, but there's so much difference between native languages and English. If you don't practice it, you don't remember it. It's very difficult, very complicated. You have to use an entirely different letter group, different sounds than the Romance languages. That's all. Thanks.
Thanks, Robert. Yes, when I started, I said hello in Selsheen, and I've been learning Tanaha for the last couple of years, which I think for the work that we're doing is hope that as non-Indigenous folks awaken, and within our school system and within all educational systems, we recognise the importance of uplifting Indigenous knowledge systems, of uplifting the perspectives that have shaped, cared for, loved and cherished the world that we live in, and did a much better job than the colonial people. That language sharing is incredibly important. And so if you have this knowledge, or if that knowledge now exists, you know, we have YouTube videos, we have these small courses we're doing to collaborate those things. You know, we say hello to the nature when we go outside, to all of our relatives, and so maybe that's the next step for people, to go on your own learning journey if you have access to that language, or to develop that language skills. I think that can be a really powerful step to revitalization, even if you're non-Indigenous. But that's what we're trying to do in our organization.
I would like to mention that's Jamie Valadez. I should have mentioned her name, who's done all the work on the language for the entire state, all the Native in the Washington state.
It's amazing. I love hearing success stories of people just creating new ways, or recognizing or reawakening old ways and making them sit in the systems, because we do have to sit within the systems. But if I look at the way you said, Robert, they told you it would take years and years to do this, and you said, I'll give myself a year. We're going to do this. We're going to change the legislation. We're going to go into the power and shift it. And you did. It's powerful. It's powerful things that, especially if there are any young people watching this, maybe you're watching this recording in your classroom, that if, as Robert said, you care and you work hard, then you can make a real difference. If anyone else has any questions, please pop them in the chat. But what I'll do is to try and make sure we're actually finishing on time, which for me is a very difficult thing in my life to actually facilitate. And we want to make sure that there's 2 minutes at the end. We have a copy of I Am the Elwha to give away to one lucky reader. So actually, maybe we'll do that now, because it's quite fun. And here's what's going to happen is I'm going to ask for you to get your typing fingers at the ready, switch on the creative parts of your brain. It's a challenge. I'll tell you now. But what I'm going to ask you to do is to write a short poem, a specific poem, a haiku poem about water. And the first person who delivers a haiku poem, so that's 5 syllables in one line, 7 in the next, 5 in the following line, 3-line poem, all in one text box, 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables. First person to deliver one with the correct number of syllables into the chat box is going to win a copy of I Am the Elwha. Go. Try and type it in one box, Rachel, because otherwise it will get out of hand. There's 60 people here trying to type. I wonder if Robert, are you writing, Robert? I see you. I hope you got your own copy of the book. I love the Elwha. Water flows downstream. Oh, look, right. Okay. Try and do your whole poem in one chat box before you hit enter. Just because otherwise we'll find it difficult to make sure people are doing it. I should have some sort of dramatic river music or something sort of flowing in the background, maybe to inspire the.
Oops.
Yeah, I've tried to do haikus before, but I keep having to remember that the rules.
Yeah, the rules. 5, 7, 5.
I thought it's nature and that's.
Okay, here we go. Rachel. Or, oh my goodness, I've got to scroll back up. Are you helping me, Steph? Are you in the background? Water brought us life. We all need it to survive. Let us care for it. Alison Mevis, I think it's yours. Oh, Sophie, were you above? Water is life.
It wasn't quite enough syllables, but it's a beautiful poem.
It is a beautiful poem, Sophie. For that, because you got a complete beautiful poem, I'm going to offer you a $25 gift card to the Outdoor Learning Store, so you could use that to support getting a copy of the book or any of the other resources we have. Thank you so much for all of your beautiful efforts. And just before we go, I wonder if is there anything you would like to close with? I'll start with you, Laura. Anything you'd like to say before we go to celebrate World Rivers Day, or just to close us off here?
thank you for taking the time to meet. And I always love that bumper sticker. We all live downstream. So I really try to live that way. So thank you, everyone.
Great advice. And Lori?
So I just wanted to say that here in California, we are doing now what is the second largest dam removal on the Klamath River. So if anybody lives in the United States, keep your eye on the Klamath River, because they will be modeling their destruction of the dam and restoration on Robert's work. In fact, people from around the world are looking at what Robert and his tribe have done as a model for how to do it right. So I just wanted to say this is the beginning of a new era of rivers. I think it's super exciting. We understand that dams really are incredibly destructive. Sometimes we got to have them, but we have to figure out a better way. Anyway, happy World Rivers Day. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Thank you. And Robert, to send us off.
Yeah, I just want to say a couple things. First of all, I heard a lot of good things about the Russian River. But anyway, the damage the rivers do, as a matter of fact, everything worked out perfectly for us. I mean, nothing could have worked out better, because in the 1990s, they started demanding that, dam licensing take into consideration environmental impacts. And we were working on the legislation in '92. So that happened 1 or 2 years beforehand. And when you take that into account, they are not free power. They definitely are not. And there's many, many, many dams that have reached their age limit and are going to be removed. And it's a good time for people to start focusing on river restoration and the positives that can be done. There's not a better time.
Thank you so much. So anyone, if you have rivers, we are all connected to them in some way. What can you do for restoration? Is it something small, like doing a litter pick to celebrate World Rivers Day, or connecting into these larger projects potentially for deconstructing dams or things? But hopefully you can go and do your own bit of place-based learning and connect into the rivers close to you, or ones that impact where you live. And it's really just so wonderful to see people sharing in the chat. I guess you can't see that on the screen, of how inspired they feel and how important this is to everyone. Someone said, thank you, Robert, for sharing. My child who's very worried about the environment joined me for this. It's important for kids to know how people can make changes and fix the things they care about. So very powerful messages, and we're so grateful for you joining us today. We will close it there. Congratulations to Sophie Bass. I'm going to grab your email from the registration link and I'll send you your gift card. And Alison Mevis, I'll send you a link to access your copy of I Am the Elwha. Beautiful images coming in of people's rivers here. Happy World Rivers Day. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Laura. And thank you, Robert, for not just being here today, but all the incredible work you've done for rivers. And I'll say good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much.